The rock near my town stands tall at an eerie 15 feet, a shadowy monument amidst the flat expanse of the countryside. Locals call it Bogey Rock, a name that carries an ominous weight, though the folklore attached to it is far darker. Legends whisper that the rock serves as the gateway to a prison of witches, eternally bound beneath it and guarded by the fierce and vengeful St. Matthew. The rock's presence dates back to the Bronze Age, its origins an enigma that baffles even the most seasoned historians. How did it get there? Why does it remain untouched, a silent sentinel of something far beyond our understanding? Over the centuries, the rock has been the epicenter of grisly tales and blood-soaked mysteries. During the 17th to the 20th centuries, countless murders and attempted murders occurred within its shadow. In 2005, the macabre legacy of Bogey Rock reached a chilling peak when a 64-year-old man was found headless in an abandoned building nearby. His headless body, they say, still wanders the rock's vicinity, a grim sentinel for the cursed site. Witnesses report seeing witches and angels near the rock, though the angels seem more spectral than divine. One particularly harrowing account described a blinding white light emanating from the rock, accompanied by the figure of a man who resembled St. James, standing motionless just meters away. I grew up hearing these stories, and though I've always been drawn to the macabre, something about Bogey Rock fills me with an unshakable dread. Even now, as an adult, I dare not approach it. The stories aren't just tales to frighten children. They're warnings, passed down from generation to generation. The locals know better than to venture near, especially during the witching hours of midnight to 4 a.m. But I'm not like the others. My fascination with the dark has always set me apart. I've spent countless nights researching the history of Bogey Rock, piecing together the fragmented tales of horror that surround it. I've spoken to the elders of the town, listened to their trembling voices as they recounted their encounters with the supernatural. And yet, I've never summoned the courage to see it up close. Not yet. At least, the night I finally decided to approach Bogey Rock was unlike any other. A thick fog rolled in, cloaking the fields in a silvery haze that muffled every sound. The air felt electric, charged with an energy that sent shivers down my spine. I couldn't tell if it was excitement or dread that compelled me to move forward, but something inside me whispered that this was the night. I armed myself with a flashlight, a notebook, and a small camera, tools I hoped would help me document whatever I might encounter. Before leaving, I tucked a crucifix into my pocket, a relic from my grandmother. She had always warned me about the rock, her voice trembling as she clutched her rosary. "You don't need to understand it," she would say. "You just need to stay away." The walk to the rock was longer than I remembered. Each step felt heavier, as if an unseen force were trying to pull me back. The closer I got, the colder the air became, until my breath emerged in frosty puffs. I could see the outline of the rock now, looming ahead like a silent predator. Its surface seemed to shimmer in the moonlight, and for a moment, I thought I saw shapes moving across it, shadows that didn't belong to anything I could see. As I drew nearer, the oppressive silence was broken by a low hum. It wasn't a sound, exactly, but a vibration that resonated deep within my chest. The hum grew louder with each step, and I felt a sudden urge to turn back. But I had come too far. This was my chance to uncover the truth, to prove that the stories were more than just folklore. When I finally reached the rock, the hum stopped abruptly, plunging the night into a deafening silence. Up close, Bogey Rock was even more imposing. Its surface was rough, pockmarked with strange symbols that looked ancient, almost alien. I ran my fingers over the carvings, feeling their jagged edges. They seemed to pulse under my touch, as if alive. I set up my camera, aiming it at the rock, and began taking notes. The symbols, the texture, the eerie glow that seemed to emanate from within. Every detail was important, but as I scribbled in my notebook, a cold wind swept through the field, extinguishing my flashlight. Panic set in as I fumbled to turn it back on, but the light refused to return. That's when I heard it, a whisper, faint but unmistakable. "Leave." The voice was neither male nor female, neither young nor old. It seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. My heart pounded as I spun around, searching for the source, but I was alone. Or so I thought. A figure emerged from the fog, its outline barely visible in the dim light. It was tall, impossibly tall, with long, spindly limbs that moved unnaturally. As it drew closer, I could see its face, or rather, the absence of one. Its head was smooth, featureless, a blank canvas that somehow radiated malice. I wanted to run, but my legs refused to move. The figure raised a hand, pointing directly at me, and the hum returned, louder than before. It was inside my head now, a relentless drone that drowned out my thoughts. I dropped to my knees, clutching my ears, but the sound only grew louder. And then, just as suddenly as it had started, it stopped. The figure was gone, the fog dissipating as quickly as it had appeared. I was alone again, trembling in the shadow of Bogey Rock. I didn't dare stay any longer. Grabbing my camera and notebook, I fled, not stopping until I was safely back in my house. When I reviewed the footage later, my hands still shaking, I found nothing unusual. No signs of the figure, no evidence of the symbols glowing. It was as if the night's events had been wiped clean. But my notebook told a different story. The pages were filled with words I didn't remember writing, strange symbols that matched the carvings on the rock. And at the bottom of the last page, scrawled in jagged letters, was a single word, return. For weeks after my encounter at Bogey Rock, the word return haunted me. It was there in my notebook, written in jagged letters that didn't match my own handwriting. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw it again, glowing in the darkness of my mind. Something had changed in me that night. I felt it deep in my bones, a pull, a connection to the rock that I couldn't explain. I tried to ignore it, but the whispers began. Faint at first, just on the edge of hearing, they grew louder with each passing day. At night, I could hear them clearly, a cacophony of voices that seemed to speak in unison and yet individually. They didn't threaten me. They beckoned, calling me back to the rock. Sleep became impossible. My thoughts grew darker, more restless. The pull of the rock was consuming me, a silent siren song that drowned out all reason. I stopped eating, stopped seeing friends and family. My world narrowed to the whispers and the relentless need to return. Finally, I gave in. It was a cold, moonless night when I found myself once again walking towards Bogey Rock. The air was heavy, almost suffocating, and the fields were eerily silent. This time, I brought no flashlight, no camera, no notebook. I knew there would be no need. Whatever awaited me, I would face it alone. The rock loomed ahead, a dark silhouette against the starless sky. As I approached, the whispers stopped, replaced by the low hum I had felt on my first visit. It was stronger now, vibrating through my entire body. My legs felt weak, but I kept moving, drawn forward by an unseen force. When I reached the rock, the hum reached a crescendo and then abruptly ceased. The silence that followed was so profound that I could hear my own heartbeat, pounding in my chest. And then, the ground beneath me began to tremble. Cracks formed in the rock's surface, glowing with an otherworldly light. The symbols carved into its face seemed to shift and change, their edges pulsating as if alive. I should have been terrified, but instead, I felt a strange calm. This was meant to happen. I was meant to be here. The light grew brighter, enveloping me until I could see nothing else. The air was filled with a deep, resonant voice, speaking in a language I couldn't understand. The voice wasn't hostile. It was commanding, filled with a power that left no room for doubt. "You have returned," it said at last, in a tone that was both a question and a statement. Before I could respond, the ground gave way beneath me, and I was falling. The light consumed me, and the world above disappeared. I landed on a surface that felt cold and smooth, though I couldn't see it. The light had dimmed, leaving me in a vast chamber that stretched into darkness. I wasn't alone. Figures emerged from the shadows, their forms shifting and indistinct. They were neither human nor animal, their shapes fluid and otherworldly. Yet I recognized them. They were the stories, the myths that had surrounded Bogey Rock for centuries. The witches, the angels, the headless man. All were here, bound to this place. And now, so was I. One of the figures stepped forward, its form solidifying into something almost human. It spoke, its voice resonating in my mind rather than my ears. "You sought the truth," it said. "Now you are part of it." I wanted to ask what that meant, but the words wouldn't come. The figure extended a hand, and without thinking, I took it. The moment our hands touched, memories flooded my mind. Memories that weren't mine. I saw the creation of the rock, the rituals that bound the witches beneath it, the centuries of blood and sacrifice. I saw the man who had become the headless sentinel, his punishment for betraying the secret of the rock. And then, I saw myself, my own face, distorted with fear and wonder, standing where I now stood. The realization hit me like a physical blow. This was always my destiny. I wasn't here by accident. I had been chosen. The figure released my hand, and the chamber began to shift. The walls closed in, the darkness pressing against me until I could barely breathe. The voices returned, louder now, chanting in a language I still couldn't understand. But this time, I felt no fear. I was no longer an outsider. I was one of them. When the light returned, I found myself standing back in the field. The rock was whole again, its surface smooth and unbroken. The night was silent, the air still. For a moment, I wondered if it had all been a dream. But as I turned to leave, I saw the symbols etched into my skin, glowing faintly in the moonlight. The whispers are with me still, guiding me. I no longer fear Bogey Rock. It is not a curse, but a gateway, a connection to something far greater than myself. And I know now that I will never leave it behind, because I am the guardian now.